Yesterday, we learned the first part of the Pythagorean theorem, that if the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides of a triangle equals the square of the longest side, then the triangle is a right triangle. In other words, if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we have a right triangle. Today, we're going to learn the second half of the Pythagorean theorem, which says that if we have a right triangle, then the sum of the squares of the two legs is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. Remember that if we have a right triangle, we know that the two shorter sides are called the legs, and the longer side is called the hypotenuse. In other words, if it is a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, I'll pause a minute, or you can pause the video to get this into your notebook. Remember, if you can fit this onto page 113, fine. If not, make sure you have it on 112. Now we're ready to go to page 114. Turn your notebook over, and we're going to headline it, The Case of the Missing Hypotenuse. Number 1, we're going to label all the sides just like we did earlier. Number 2, we're going to substitute the values we know for the variables. Since we won't know the hypotenuse, we won't be able to substitute for that. Number 3, we're going to do the math on the left-hand side of the equation. And number 4, we're going to take the square root of both sides. That will give us the length of the missing hypotenuse. Let's take it as an example, the triangle we saw yesterday. Here's our triangle with a side of 3, a side of 4, and we know that C is 5. But let's see if we can figure that out. Now, if they tell me it's a right triangle, and they may tell you that, or they may show you that, or they may give you a word problem that implies that there is a right triangle, and you'll have to read it into it. But if you know it's a right triangle, then you know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The first step is to label all the sides. C, remember, is always the longest one. A is the shortest, and B is the next shortest. C is always, remember, going to be opposite the right angle. Then we're going to write the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Once you have that written, substitute in the values. So for A, we're going to substitute in 3. For B, we're going to substitute in 4. Then we'll do the math. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. We'll add them together and get 25. Now comes the new part. Remember I told you before that whatever you do to one side of an equation, you also have to do to the other side to make sure it's balanced. Here, what we're going to do is take the square root of both sides. So we have to take the whole square root on the left and the whole square root on the right. That's going to give us c, because the square root of c squared is simply c. And on the left, it's going to give us the length of the missing hypotenuse. In this case, c equals 5, exactly what we thought it was going to be. Let's take another example. Maybe you'll want to copy this one into your book so you have it written down and you know what you're doing. Once again, we have a right triangle, indicated as a right triangle by the right angle marker. Once again, first step, label our sides. Side opposite the right angle with the longest side, that's going to be C. The next sides, you're going to have A is the shortest side, and B is the next shortest side. Write your Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Substitute in the values. All right, 1 is A, 2 is B, and we don't know C. Do the math. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 2, and C squared we don't know. Add them together, and C squared equals 5. And now, the new step, take the square root of both sides. That you would do on your calculator, and you can round it to the nearest tenth. In this case, C equals 2.2. Right? Pause the video a minute to make sure you have this in a notebook. And then go on and watch the next example and see if you can predict how we're going to do it. we have it arranged a little bit differently here. But once again, you can see that one of the sides is missing, and it's the hypotenuse, the one opposite the right angle. So once again, our first step, label. Our second step, write the Pythagorean theorem, substitute the values, do the math, add them together, and then take the square root. Round it to the nearest tenth when you do it on the calculator, and you'll now have the measurement of the missing hypotenuse.